Let's get one thing straight. They knew what they were doing. That message they ignored, that betrayal, that fake apology, it wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. And today you stop pretending it didn't break you. Because your silence won't protect you anymore, your power will. This is your comeback. And baby, it's going to be louder than their lies. They hurt you with precision. Stop making excuses for them. That pain you felt, it wasn't accidental. It wasn't random. It was calculated, thought through, executed with just enough charm to confuse you and just enough cruelty to crush you. But you keep saying, maybe they were just going through something. Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I expected too much. No, stop. They knew what they were doing. They knew how much it would sting, and they did it anyway. You ever had someone promise you forever and then vanish without explanation? One day they're calling you their soulmate, and the next they're liking someone else's picture, ignoring your texts, acting brand new. And what do? You excuse it. You say maybe they're busy. Maybe it's not what it looks like. But deep down, your intuition screams the truth. You felt the shift. You just didn't want to believe that someone who once held your heart could drop it so carelessly. But people don't accidentally hurt you consistently. They're not confused. They're comfortable. Comfortable with your forgiveness. Comfortable with the idea that no matter how many times they disrespect you, you'll still stay. That's not love. That's manipulation. Think about a friend who constantly throws shade in the name of jokes. At first, you laugh it off. They call you sensitive. They say, I'm just joking. Why overreacting? But those jokes have sharp edges. They know exactly where to poke, exactly what to bring up to make you feel small. Your insecurities, their punchline. Your achievements, their competition. Yet you keep them around because you value loyalty. But the truth is, they're loyal to the version of you that doesn't outshine them. So every time you succeed, they chip away at your self-esteem just enough to keep you humble. You call it friendship, but it's envy wearing a smile. Maybe it's your own family, the people who are supposed to protect you, and yet they constantly criticize your choices, mock your dreams, compare you to others, and you defend them. You say, they mean well. That's just how they talk. They don't know better. But let's be honest. They do know better. They just choose not to do better. Because your silence has taught them it's okay to disrespect your boundaries. They gaslight you into believing love has to hurt. But love isn't supposed to crush your spirit. It's supposed to raise it. Remember when you helped that person, supported them, lifted them up when they were at rock bottom? Then the moment they got what they wanted, they disappeared. They didn't even look back. And you still said, it's okay, I guess they were busy. Maybe I was too much. No, you weren't too much. You were just too available to someone who was only loyal to their needs. They knew how much you cared, and they exploited that. They milked your empathy. That was never your fault. It was their design. Or maybe it's the person who flirts with you, makes you feel special, keeps you emotionally hooked, but never commits. They say the right things, but when you need them, they vanish. You sit by your phone waiting, doubting your worth, questioning if you were ever enough. But don't you see, they liked the attention, not you. They liked the control. They played the hot and cold game like a pro. And you kept thinking, if I just love harder, maybe they'll see my worth. No, you don't have to perform for love. You don't have to beg to be treated right. People show you who they are. The problem is you keep repainting the picture. You romanticize the potential and ignore the pattern. Every scar they left on you was done with full awareness. They may not have stabbed you with a knife, but they cut you with silence, with absence, with indifference, and they watched you bleed emotionally and still didn't flinch. So stop calling it a misunderstanding. Stop calling it bad time. Start calling it what it is. A choice. You are not difficult. You are finally unavailable for disrespect. Let that sink in. They didn't walk away because you were too much. They walked away because they couldn't get away with too little anymore. There's a big difference. The moment you stopped laughing at their half-hearted efforts, the moment you demanded honesty instead of mixed signals, the moment you said, I deserve more, they called you difficult. Not because you changed, but because you stopped allowing them to treat you like an option. You ever notice how people call you complicated when you start setting boundaries? Suddenly, you're too sensitive because their jokes don't make you laugh anymore. You're too serious because you won't tolerate being ghosted and then sweet-talked back into the cycle. But that's not difficulty. When someone jokes about your body, your trauma, or your past, and you no longer smile to keep the peace, you are not difficult. You're just finally choosing you. And choosing you feels rebellious to people who benefited from your silence. Maybe it's at work, you speak up in a meeting and suddenly you're aggressive. But when someone else repeats your idea 5 minutes later, they're confident. And you sit there thinking, am I being too much? No. You're not too much. You're finally refusing to shrink. You're finally refusing to hand over your brilliance in exchange for quiet approval. You no longer want to be liked if it costs you your voice. And that makes people uncomfortable. Or maybe it's in your romantic life. You stop entertaining people who only text when they're bored. You don't respond to 2 a.m. hey messages anymore. You demand consistency, not convenience. And what happens? They label you as high maintenance. Why? Because you want effort. Because you want clarity. Because you're done decoding mixed signals like it's your job. And they hate it. Because they can no longer access you on their terms. That's not you being hard to love. That's you being healed enough to wait for real love. Think about your friends. The ones who only called when they needed something. The ones who disappeared when you were hurting, but posted you on Instagram when they needed validation. You finally said no. You stopped overgiving. You stopped showing up for people who never showed up for you. And now, you're selfish. But isn't it funny how selfish you become when you stop being selfless for people who never deserved it? They were never uncomfortable with your love. They were uncomfortable with your limits. Even in your family, the moment you stop being the yes person, the moment you say, I'm not okay with that, you're the rebel. You're the black sheep. But in truth, you're just done sacrificing your peace to maintain family politics. You're no longer willing to carry generational trauma on your back to keep everyone else comfortable. You're choosing healing. You're choosing boundaries. You're choosing to be whole instead of being liked. Being unavailable for disrespect doesn't mean you hate people. It means you've outgrown disrespect disguised as love, sarcasm disguised as humor, manipulation disguised as charm. It means you've leveled up, and not everyone gets a seat at the next level. You used to beg for people to love you. Now you're observing who respects you. You used to shrink yourself so they wouldn't feel insecure. Now you walk tall, even if it makes them nervous. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're hard to please. But let them talk. Because they wanted war. You had every reason to call them out, to make them feel the weight of what they did. But you didn't. You chose silence. Not because you didn't hurt, but because you realized their actions said more about them than your reaction ever could. You understood one of life's greatest truths. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Imagine working day and night to build something. A business, a dream, a goal, and someone close to you mocks it, tells you it's not realistic, makes jokes behind your back, doesn't support you. You find out. You could clap back. You could shame them. But instead, you build in silence. You succeed in silence. You turn the volume down on your pain and up on your purpose. And one day, they scroll through their phone and see your name everywhere. That's not revenge. That's royalty. Speaking without uttering a word, because your silence was never empty. It was preparation. Think about a toxic ex who suddenly starts dating someone new and parades them around like a trophy, hoping you'll feel less than. They try to trigger a response. They want you to feel small. And for a second you almost give in. But then you remember, they downgraded. You evolved. You don't stalk their profile. You don't subtweet. You don't enter that war. You simply glow up. You let your peace, your growth, your joy do the talking. They thought silence was surrender, but it was strategy. Because the loudest statement a healed woman can make is to walk away without looking back. Even in betrayal among family, silence reigns supreme. Maybe they whispered lies, created distance, turned others against you. You know the truth. You have every chance to retaliate, but you remain quiet. Not out of fear, but out of strength. Because you know something they don't. Truth always outlives lies. And when people finally see the truth, your silence will echo louder than any defense you could have made. That is the elegance of royalty. Responding only when the world is listening. And even then, speaking softly with dignity. In friendships too, silence becomes your statement. That friend who ghosted you the moment you needed them the most, only to reappear when your light started shining again. You could call them out. You could remind them of every time you showed up for them. You could call them out for but instead, you smile, say nothing, and let their guilt eat what your silence won't feed. You stop giving them the privilege of proximity. That's not petty. That's power. That's knowing your worth so deeply that you don't need to prove it. Let the world roar. Let others exhaust themselves trying to hurt you, provoke you, talk about you. You will not dance to the rhythm of chaos. You will rise like royalty, unshaken, calm, dignified. You don't need revenge when your silence becomes their reminder of everything they lost when they lost you. They wanted to break you, so don't give them the satisfaction. That's the game they played behind your back, in silence, in shadows. They fed off your insecurity, your kindness, your vulnerability. They fed off your children, Kim. They whispered about your pain while smiling to your face. They saw your heart as a weakness, your love as something they could play with, and your silence as permission. But what they didn't know is this: you were never made to break. You were made to bend, to bleed, to fall, yes, but not to break. You were made to rise from ashes, not settle in them. There are people who get pleasure from watching others stumble. You think they loved you? No. They loved the control. The idea that they could say a few careless words and leave you shattered. They wanted to see if you'd beg, if you'd break down, if you'd lose your mind, just to prove your worth to them. But the most powerful move you will ever make is not crying louder or proving harder. It's standing tall, unshaken, and moving on like their absence did not crack the spine of your soul. Because healing in front of the people who tried to destroy you is the most poetic revenge. Remember that time someone betrayed you just to see if you'd fall apart? Maybe it was someone close, a best friend who exposed your secrets, a partner who cheated, a family member who used your pain as gossip. They didn't think twice about the damage. In fact, some of them hoped it would ruin you. But you held your silence. You held your grace, and here you are. Still breathing, still walking, still rising. They counted on your pain to bury you. But you were soil. You grew from it. You didn't just survive, you evolved. Or maybe it's in your work. A colleague who undermined your efforts, stole your ideas, took credit for your grind. They wanted to break your spirit, to watch you quit, to see you walk away so they could feel taller in your absence. But you stayed. You worked harder. You rose so high that even they had to look up to see you. That was another failure mine. They wanted to break your spirit, to watch you quit, to see you walk away so they could stay there. You turned your back to see you. That's how you win, by not quitting when they expected your silence to mean surrender. Even in relationships, some people don't leave, they break you. Slowly, bit by bit. They manipulate you into thinking you're not enough, that your standards are too high, your feelings too much, your love too needy. They do it until you question your worth. And the moment you start dimming your light for their comfort, they smile. Because that's what they wanted. But the moment you wake up and say, I deserve better, that's when you take your power back. Because no one who truly loves you will try to reduce you. They will rise to meet you. You must realize not everyone who claps is happy for you. Some clap to mask their envy. Some smile while planting seeds of doubt in your mind. The moment you start growing, leveling up, becoming who you are destined to be, those people will try to remind you of your lowest moments. Why? Because your shine makes them insecure. They want to break your momentum with reminders of your mistakes. Don't let them. Let your growth be your roar. Let your focus be your fire. The strongest souls are forged in flames, and your scars are not shameful. They are survival stories in ink. There are people who watched you fall and celebrated in silence, who waited for you to quit, who hoped you'd fade into the background, broken and bitter. But you owe them nothing. Not your pain, not your rage, not your explanation. All you owe them is your silence and your glow. Because nothing says you didn't win like living beautifully after they tried to destroy you. Every hurt was a hidden lesson. You didn't go through pain just to suffer. You went through it to awaken. Life doesn't teach you in comfort. It teaches you in chaos, in heartbreak, in betrayal, in silence. That moment they walked away when you needed them most, that wasn't just abandonment. That was life saying, watch who disappears when your light dims. Because sometimes pain is the only thing loud enough to make you see clearly what love blinded you to. That friend who vanished the second you stopped being useful, that hurt wasn't meaningless. It taught you that loyalty isn't loud, it's consistent. That people can say, I'm here for you, but what they mean is, I'm here for what you give me. It showed you how to be your own rescue, your own home, your own answer. And when you stopped calling, stopped explaining, stopped chasing, you realized losing them didn't break you, it freed you. Remember that time you loved with everything and they still chose someone else? That wasn't rejection, that was redirection. The universe was never trying to punish you. It was trying to protect you from a path that would have killed your spirit. That heartbreak, it broke your expectations but revealed your endurance. It reminded you that your love is not weak just because they mishandled it. It's powerful. And next time, it will land in hands that cherish, not crush. That kind of pain carved room for you to love yourself harder. Or the job you didn't get. The opportunity you were so sure was meant for you, you crushed. Truth is, you didn't change to become difficult. You changed to become unavailable to people who treat love like a transaction and respect like a favor. Revenge is loud, but silence is royal. Anyone can react. Anyone can scream, curse, post a bitter quote, expose secrets, or drag someone through the mud when they've been hurt. That's easy. That's emotional impulse. But real power? Real power is when you feel the fire burning inside you and you choose to sit still. Not because you're weak, but because you're above it. Royalty doesn't respond to noise. A queen doesn't argue with peasants throwing stones. She adjusts her crown and moves forward with grace that blinds her enemies. Think of that moment when someone betrayed your trust. Maybe a friend who twisted your truth, or a lover who walked away and replaced you like you were nothing. Your heart, you questioned your worth. You thought, what more could I have done? But what you didn't see was that rejection rerouted you. It sharpened your skills, built your hunger, deepened your discipline. And when the right door finally opened, you didn't just walk through, you owned the room. That earlier disappointment, it was your preparation, not your punishment. It was the lesson in disguise, the failure that taught you how to rise. Even the betrayal by someone you call family, that cut so deep because it came from those you least expected. But it taught you boundaries. It taught you that blood is not thicker than peace. That you don't have to keep toxic people close just because they share your last name. You learned how to love from a distance. You learned that your energy is sacred and not everyone deserves access to it. That pain turned you into a guardian of your peace, not a prisoner of your past. Painful moments in love, in career, in friendships, they all looked like endings, but they were lessons wearing masks. You learned who you are when the mask of perfection falls off. You learned that your worth is not negotiable, even when someone tries to discount it. You learned that pain sharpens you, not shatters you. That's the hidden gift. Every scar you carry is a page in a book of wisdom the world can't buy. You don't become strong from applause. You become strong from the nights you cried on the bathroom floor and still got up the next morning. From the messages you typed and deleted because silence was your growth. From the apologies you never received and the closures you created on your own. Those are the invisible victories. Those are the lessons that turn ordinary people into warriors, into women who don't just survive, but transform. So when you look back, don't just see pain, see progress. See the woman who walked through fire and came out wearing light, because every tear watered a seed. Every rejection built your resilience. Every hurt, every disappointment, every breakdown, it was never random. It was a lesson crafted just for you. You weren't being destroyed, you were being designed. Your healing is private, but your comeback, make it public. Not because you need applause, but because they need to know. The same person they counted out, the one they tried to break in whispers, is now rising in silence and shining so loud, it's undeniable. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, but let your glow be a statement. Let your elevation echo through every space where your name was once dragged. Healing is a sacred space. It happens when the doors are closed, when the phone is silent, when the tears are too heavy to share. It happens in the late night battles with your thoughts, in the lonely drives, in the quiet journaling of all the things you never said out loud. That's where the real transformation begins. Because growth isn't always beautiful. Sometimes it looks like you're losing everyone to find yourself. Sometimes it means being misunderstood, mocked, and overlooked while you learn how to put yourself first. But you owe yourself that privacy. You owe yourself that gentle space to rebuild without the noise of judgment. Maybe you were ghosted. Maybe they left without warning, blocked you and moved on like you never existed. And you were left with silence, confusion, and pain. That pain was your cocoon. Because while they thought you'd break, you were healing. You were unlearning patterns, setting new boundaries, discovering the love within yourself. And when you show up again, new hairstyle, new energy, new vision. Don't explain a thing. Just let your presence remind them that you were never weak. You were evolving. In your career, you might have been overlooked. Others were chosen while your talent sat in the shadows. They called you too much or not enough, passed you over for promotions, made you question your capabilities. So you stopped explaining your ambition and started building in silence. You took online classes after work. You stayed up late designing your dream. You read when others slept, studied when others partied. That silence, that was your power move. Because when you rise with your business, your book, your brand, your breakthrough, let the world see it. Don't shrink, don't downplay, don't apologize. Walk in like the storm they didn't see coming. Even in your friendships, they laughed when you were low, they cheered when you failed, they smiled at your confusion and rolled their eyes at your healing. You stopped inviting them to your table. You stopped oversharing your wounds. And you started feeding your spirit instead of feeding their gossip. That quiet separation, that was divine. Because when your circle shrinks, your clarity expands. And now, when you walk into the room, glowing with self-worth and peace, you don't need to say a word. Your comeback speaks volumes. Healing is choosing yourself over and over again, even when it's hard. It's walking away from love that hurts and peace that costs too much. It's not texting back. It's deleting the number. It's seeing their name and feeling nothing, and the world doesn't need to witness that part. Because that is yours, that is sacred. But when you rise from it, when you walk out of your healing cocoon and into your power, let the world watch. Let them see how a broken girl turned into a masterpiece. You owe no one the story of your suffering, but you owe yourself the celebration of your survival. So when they ask where you've been, smile and say, I was busy building the version of me no one saw coming. Don't announce your healing, announce your empire. Announce your presence. Announce your peace. Because your comeback isn't revenge. It's revelation. It's living proof that the ones they counted out always rise the loudest. You were never too broken to rise. You were just too powerful to stay small. Let them call you dramatic. Let them say you changed. Because you did. You evolved. You outgrew every version of yourself that begged for love, that chased validation, that stayed silent when you should have roared. And now you are walking evidence that rock bottom was a launch pad, not a grave. That silence wasn't weakness. It was the setup for your most powerful return. You don't need to seek revenge. Your elevation is the revenge. Your peace is louder than any clapback. Your glow is brighter than any apology you never got. Every time you choose growth over drama, silence over chaos, and love over ego, you win. You were never meant to fight them back. You were meant to rise so high, they have to look up to. Find you. Because the version of you that cried over them, she's gone. The woman speaking now, she's untouchable. Some people needed to lose you to learn your value. And you needed to lose them to find your worth. The ones who left you shattered thought they buried you. But you weren't buried. You were planted. And now you're blooming in ways they can't ignore, in places they can't reach. You're not coming back to fit in. You're coming back to take over. This time you don't knock on the door, you own the building. People will talk, they'll whisper, guess, assume. Let them. Let them wonder how you're glowing after what you've been through. Let them gossip about your peace, your silence, your strength. Because when the dust settles, the truth will always rise. You were the one they underestimated, and now you're the one they can't stop watching. You no longer water deserts. You no longer beg people to see your heart. If someone can't match your energy, your frequency, your soul, you let them go. Not out of hate, but out of love for yourself. That's not pride. That's evolution. You finally understand that your time, your presence, your heart, it's a privilege, not a free-for-all. You're not bitter. You're better. You're not cold. You're wise. You're not difficult. You've just raised your standards. And if someone calls that too much, let them leave. Because someone who's meant for you will call that exactly what I prayed for. You're not hard to love. You just refuse to beg for it now. There's something powerful about a woman who stopped explaining herself, who no longer defends her silence, her boundaries, her glow up. Because when you stop trying to convince the wrong people of your worth, the right ones show up and already see it. And when you walk like you're chosen, when you speak like you've healed, when you move like you've already won, the universe rises to meet you. So walk boldly, speak fiercely, love yourself louder. You've already walked through fire. You've already cried oceans. Now it's time to rise like the sun and blind every lie they told about you. You're not here to survive anymore. You're here to dominate your lane, to create ripples with your energy, to remind every soul watching that she remembered who she was, and the game changed. No more shrinking, no more second guessing. From this moment forward, you show up like the storm you are, soft but not weak, kind but not blind, loving but never again available for less than you deserve. This isn't just a comeback. This is your era, your reign, and the world better be ready. Because when a woman rises from the ashes, she doesn't just return, she rules. Because when a woman rises from the ashes, she doesn't just return, she rules.